Hey guys, Steve here. Today we got a game in the Ostergotland for you. Tier 7 European Destroyer. Now we got Stig on there this time. And Yukikaze and King for the inspirations. That's right. And look at those ship mods. Anti-AA in slot 1 and 4. Okay, well apparently the carriers have ticked me off to the point now where we are going to begin to explore AA builds. Are they worth it? And what sort of impact do they have? Now, this game, I'm going to have a lot of planes shot down, no doubt about it. But compared to the stream that we had, I think it was a couple days ago, where we played a game in this, we had 36 planes shot down there, and we still had one more of those red AA boosters available. I think the carrier in that game gave up. Okay, so I think you can actually put up a double Clear Skies medal in this configuration pretty easily. But still, you know, we're going to have like a measly 26 planes shot down or something in this thing. So, not as bad, but overall, we're still going to be ruining the carriers games. Now, we'll analyze this game. I'm just going to discuss the effect, how we can boost the builds over the next few minutes here. So, to set up what we're doing here, we're scouting, obviously, the eastern line. Seeing the Ostergotland there, the radar cruiser, one of two cruisers. There's Buffalo. Those are the top two targets in the game. Okay, you can put the destroyer for the enemy on there as well. So we got 3 high priority ships over here. Who's my team going to shoot at when we're attempting to spot these guys? None of those guys. So eventually I'm going to say, okay, nothing's happening over here. We're going to go try something else. So we'll jump back into the game and discuss strategy more here. But I want to briefly go over kind of how we can boost these things. Now, first off, the ship mods. This is the slot 1 damage boost and slot 4 range boost or something, vice versa. I don't know which does which. But those, if you put them on your ship, and starting at tier 7, you can use both of them, tier 7, 8, and legendary tier. You can get 2 AA mods. And if you do that, that would account for, at least in this particular ship, I didn't check them out on other ships, but I was looking at the Oyster. If we just put on the ship mods, that's a 20% boost. Okay, so that's pretty good. And especially on the ship that has pretty good AA to begin with. But here, the biggest boost, which is going to be available on every ship generally, is just putting on the hull itself. Now, if you upgrade the hull on this thing, I'll show you, like the AA guns that are configured at 4.2 kilometers, they go from 462 on my builds to 1603. All right, so a 4 times boost on that gun. Now, the longer range guns coming in at 6 kilometers, they had the same stat. So the hull's not going to universally boost everything by 400%, 350, whatever it is in this particular case. But it, in general, will add more AA guns and typically make them stronger as well. So if I would always recommend boosting the hull mod first, or upgrading the hull mod when we got a new tech tree ship unlocked anyways. It's going to give you better mobility, more HP, i.e. we got better survivability on those. And oh, by the way, usually we're going to be upgrading the AA. Okay, so that's always a good thing. And then finally, when we slap on, you know, this is comparing the ship mods, or the anti-AA mods, the AA mods. Now we've added the hull, and now we add on the Stig. And now Stig, with the Yukikaze inspiration, which maxed as 20% boost to damage, the AA damage on destroyers. Extremely powerful. One of the most powerful inspirations in the game in terms of how much it's affecting the build. And then we got Ernst King, or Ernest King, whatever his name is, American cruise or carrier commander. Ironically, we're using him to exact revenge against carrier players. He adds to the range. I think it's about 6.8% on this, and it probably tops off about 8% would be my guess. But anyway, we're boosting the damage, we're boosting the range, and if you don't have Yukikaze Azure Lane, then of course you can put on Yamaguchi, Japanese carrier pilot, for more damage. And that's just a universal perk that applies to AA on any ship class, so it doesn't have to be destroyers, cruisers, or battleships. It works on anything. So King and Yamaguchi are kind of the universal commanders. But when we're putting those on this build, that's another 25%, right? So we got a pretty strong AA build on the commander build. if you go back, if you missed it and you want to go back to the beginning and then just pause and look at it, we got slot 1, the AA booster there. We got the inspirations. So there's still even room to boost it a little bit more. So we could potentially get it between 25 and 30% would be my guess. But that's a significant increase over, the hull and the ships by itself. So there's ways to boost it. So we take the mid or the shorter range guns, for instance, unmodded, no commander, no nothing on here. It's 3.5 kilometer range, 371 damage per second. All right, now if we add on the ship mods, the hull itself, we upgrade, and the commander, we've gone from 3.5 kilometers on the lower or the closer range gun to 4.7, 1.2 kilometers boost, and we've gone from 371 damage to 2,116. So huge increase. So there's ways to do it, and you can see as we jump into this game here, we've already shot down a fair amount of planes. Now, dealt with the enemy destroyer. You can see we've repositioned over here. Not a lot of action from our guys. In fact, they don't really want to leave the spawn, at least up until this point. But we came over here, we spotted the destroyer, and the guys that were kind of south of A, which I don't think is the strongest position usually. Actually, it's not bad, but I wouldn't necessarily put 2 or 3 ships there. But they were actually shooting at the destroyer, did a great job wrecking him. That allows us to get B. And now it's just like, how can the carrier, who would normally be able to shut down a base capture operation like this, how can it counter it? Because he's starting to figure out now, every time he flies over the Oyster, his squad gets wrecked. And that's not appealing to carrier players, not as much, or it's not nearly as appealing to them as it is to me, inflicting said result on them. So they're going to wise up and stop doing that. But if they keep bombing us, cool, we'll keep shooting down the planes. I got to keep an eye on the game, though, because we have conceded the East, obviously. We knew that was going to happen about 5 minutes ago. That's why we came over here, captured B. Now what can we do? Do we try and disrupt their capture of our home cap D? Losing that's going to be a big double whammy. Nah, we're going to mitigate the damage. We're going to go over here, grab A quickly, and again, they got no surface ships that can counter us here, but if the carrier wants to come over here and try and bomb us or reset us, sure, we'll go ahead and shoot down another squadron worth of planes. That's not bothering me, and you can see he's kind of sniffing around here. I don't know if he's looking for me or if he's trying to get an angle on those battleships or whatever to the south of A, seeing if he can bomb them, but we're not going to let him get by here. And he's as soon as he sees the AA going off from the destroyer, he knows, okay, that's that damn Oyster. I'm getting the heck away from him. So, we can basically capture the bases without effect from the carrier, which is very nice, because a well-played carrier, in my opinion, focuses on eliminating the destroyers of the enemy team, right? But in this situation, not able to do so. Certainly not. Okay. And once we get that AA module back here in a couple seconds, we have a mighty attack available once again. And that, if you're not familiar with that, it's available on more ships than you would notice, probably. If you go to your loadout screen, always you can check. So you'd have to usually sacrifice a sonar or smoke or something. Who knows? I haven't actually started putting them on my fleet as much as I'm thinking I probably will end up doing them. But the ships that I've had them on, they usually melt the squads. And why is that? Well, it's doubling the effectiveness of the attack. I think it's doubling the damage for the duration, which is, if we're talking about a 2,000 damage per second attack, and now we're doubling that, those planes have no chance when they're coming around the Ostergotland. So I'm going to continue to. I'm kind of committed to myself to start exploring these AA builds, trying to figure out when are they worthwhile. Is it worth putting on all the ships, even the ones with bad AA, or is there kind of a sweet spot, a cutoff? Or are they just, because the downside of the build, obviously, is, well, a lot of games there aren't carriers. And here you find, when you load into this Ostergotland with the AA souped up, now you find yourself cursing the TV when you don't get a carrier on the enemy team, which is kind of paradoxical. Because, man, I would love to ruin their game for them, but if they're not even in the game, well, now we've wasted 2 ship mods, half the ship mods, 2 inspirations, 100% of the commander inspirations, and slot 1 perk. And countering something that's not going to even be guaranteed to be there. And in fact, depends on the tier and depends on, a few different factors, I suppose. But in general, usually there's still going to be less, at least high tier games, less games that would have a carrier than would not have a carrier, in other words. So basically, we're putting a lot in here, a lot of resources, commander resources, ship resources, to counter a threat that's not universally present, I guess is the best way to put it. Nevertheless, that's where the science comes in. We're going to have to do some extensive testing, see if it's worth it. Is it worth it on destroyers, cruisers, battleships, just a certain class, maybe two classes. But I want to begin, this is kind of my opening salvo into the topic here. And of course, when we're exploring topics like this, especially in a situation where I frankly have not done a lot of testing on this topic previously, just because I always take I try and take an economic viewpoint of this game. And when we're saying, okay, we're putting all these resources into something that may or may not be applicable, well, let's just go with a more universally available or useful build, right? Let's boost the damage or the concealment or whatever, something else that's going to help in every game. Okay, but you guys, I'm sure, and we actually did a quick poll on the last stream where we were talking about this. It sounded like about 20% of you guys have been exploring going really deep into these AA builds. So I want to start getting some feedback from you guys. Let me know if you got some favorite ships that just shred with the AA, or let me know your thoughts. Like if Japanese destroyers only got a 8 AA rating, is it worth boosting that by 30, 40, 50%, whatever we can boost it by, or is it worth going a different direction? So, in your opinion, is it only worth boosting builds that have a very strong build to begin with? And that's usually a pretty good approach for any sort of build in this game. We want to accentuate strengths and mitigate weaknesses. So, but I generally, my approach has been boosting strengths or enhancing strengths is more useful than mitigating weaknesses. So let me know what you guys think here. Here we're getting a little bit of sweet revenge. The Lexington, he's not popping the planes is the one problem, because I would really like some more plane shot down, but he's so focused on maneuvering a ship, trying to survive for the duration of the match, which clearly isn't going to happen. But it's just nice getting some sweet revenge on these flyboys. I'm sure they annoy most of us. And if you got the Ostergotland and you got some commander resources and ship resources, that's one way to do it. That's a look at the Ostergotland for you guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, hey, consider subscribing. Lots of World of Warships coming for you all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. I do love to hear from you guys, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.